another woman's child. The morning sun crawled over the red roofs of Umwago village. The smell of roasted corn and firewood smoke filled the air. At the small health center near the market square, people whispered about Nurse Ebo, the kind-looking midwife with a calm smile. She was loved by everyone because she helped mothers bring life into the world. But behind her gentle face hid something dark. Ebo had a secret only the spirits could understand. She sometimes exchanged babies for money. No one in Umwago suspected her. Not even Mama Chika, whose baby's cry that morning didn't sound like her own. Inside the delivery room, the air smelled of disinfectant and fear. Mama Chika screamed as her baby came, while her husband prayed outside. When the baby arrived, Ebo smiled, wrapped the child, and whispered, "Congratulations." But when she looked at the baby's fair skin and curly hair, her heart raced. Another woman, a rich trader's wife from the next village, had begged her for a child last week, promising her bundles of cash. Ebo's heart beat fast. The temptation grew like fire. No one will ever know, she thought, glancing at the newborn. Outside, the husband jumped up when he heard the baby's cry. "Thank God. My wife has delivered," he shouted with tears. The villagers clapped and danced. Ebo stepped out, smiling as if nothing was wrong. But her hands trembled as she handed the baby to Mama Chika. "No, your baby be this," she said softly. Mama Chika kissed her child, not knowing her real baby was already gone, exchanged for money that now hid in Ebo's handbag. That night, Ebo couldn't sleep. The baby's cry echoed in her ears. "What if the truth comes out?" she whispered. Her shadow looked like a ghost on the wall. The money she collected lay beside her, but it felt like blood. She covered her ears, but the imaginary cries wouldn't stop. For the first time, guilt crawled into her heart like a cold snake. The next morning, Mama Chika rushed to the clinic with tears in her eyes. "Nurse Ebo, my baby doesn't suck breast, and her eyes look strange," she cried. Ebo's heart dropped. "Bring the baby here," she said, pretending to smile. As she took the baby, her hands shook. Deep down, she knew the child didn't belong to that mother. The spirit of the real child was crying, and the wind outside carried a whisper, "Ebo, your secret will not stay hidden forever." A week later, a fine car stopped in front of the small clinic, something rare in Umwago. The villagers turned to stare as a beautiful woman in lace wrapper and gold earrings stepped out. It was Madame Ifenanya, the rich trader's wife from the next town. Her perfume filled the air, and her smile was full of pride. She entered the clinic quietly, her eyes shining with excitement. "Ebo, I came to see my baby," she whispered, holding a thick brown envelope full of money. Ebo's heart jumped like a drumbeat. "Madam, you shouldn't have come here," she said quickly, looking around. "People might see you." But Madame Ifenanya smiled. "Relax, nurse. Nobody will ever know. You gave me a baby, and now my husband believes it's his miracle. Take this, for your trouble." Ebo accepted the envelope, but her hands shook badly. The smell of the money filled her nose, but guilt squeezed her heart like a hand. "Madam, please go now," she whispered. As Madame Ifenanya walked out, Ebo noticed a young man watching from across the road. His face was familiar. It was Obina, Mama Chika's younger brother, a local mechanic. He frowned, his eyes moving from the car to Ebo's trembling hands. Fear crawled through Ebo's chest. She closed the clinic door fast and leaned on it, breathing hard. "God, please don't let anyone find out," she prayed quietly. But deep down, she knew it was too late. The wind of trouble had already started blowing. That evening, Obina walked to his sister's house. "Chika, something no right about that nurse," he said. Mama Chika looked weak, her baby crying non-stop. "Obina, I beg, leave matter. My baby never drink milk since morning." Obina bent down, studying the child. "This pikin no even resemble you or your husband," he said slowly. Mama Chica hissed. You dey talk nonsense, she replied, but her voice trembled. When she looked closely at the baby's fair skin, something in her chest moved. Could her brother be right? That night, thunder rolled over the village. Ebo sat in her room, counting the money, but her lantern flickered weakly. She heard a faint cry, like a baby calling her name. You can't run from the truth, her mind whispered. Her heart pounded. She threw the money on the floor and began to cry. God, forgive me, she sobbed. The guilt was heavier than the money. She knew that if Obinna began to dig into the truth, everything would scatter like wind-blown ashes. The next morning, Mama Chica returned to the clinic. Nurse Ebo, my baby is getting weaker, she cried. Ebo forced a smile, pretending to be calm. Don't worry, she will be fine, she said softly. But her eyes kept darting to the window, where Obinna stood with folded arms, watching closely. His face looked ready to uncover something big. The baby coughed faintly, and Ebo's body froze. What if this baby dies, she thought, fear crawling up her neck. One secret was already shaking her entire world, and the truth was now walking toward her step by step. Obinna's suspicion. Obinna couldn't sleep that night. The sound of rain hitting his zinc roof mixed with the cries of his sister's weak baby. Something inside him kept shouting that something was wrong. That woman no pure, he muttered to himself. He sat up, remembering how Ebo's hands trembled when the rich woman left the clinic. He could still see the fear in her eyes. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. How Nurse go fear like that if she no get secret, he whispered. Obinna made up his mind, he would find out what Ebo was hiding, no matter what it took. The next morning, he went to the mechanic shop, but his mind wasn't there. His friends joked and laughed, but he barely answered. Around noon, he saw Ebo walking fast across the road, carrying a small black bag. She kept looking left and right, like someone running from a ghost. Obinna quietly followed her from a distance. She stopped at a small kiosk near the bus park and met a strange man. They talked for a while, then she handed him something that looked like money. The man nodded and gave her a small wrapped nylon before walking away. Obinna's heart beat fast. What is she doing, he thought. He hid behind a tree and watched Ebo enter a taxi, her eyes full of worry. Later that day, Obinna went to see his friend, Inspector Kolu, a police officer who worked at the outpost near the main road. Kolu, I get something wey dey worry me, he said. You remember Nurse Ebo? The officer nodded. Wetin happen? Obinna took a deep breath. I think she dey hide something. My sister's baby no look like her or her husband. And last week, I see one rich woman visit that clinic with envelope. The nurse looked afraid. The officer frowned. Obinna, this kind matter no easy. But if you get proof, bring 'em. That evening, Mama Chica sat outside her hut, rocking her baby gently. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Her husband, Sunday, came home tired from the farm. Chica, what's wrong again? He asked. She sniffed. This child no one drink milk. And I dey fear something. Sunday sat beside her, holding her shoulder. Don't say that again, he said softly. Our baby will be fine. But deep in his heart, even Sunday felt something wasn't right. The baby's eyes looked too bright, too strange, like they carried a story no one could explain. Meanwhile, Ebo sat on her bed, staring at the small nylon the strange man had given her. Inside was a small charm wrapped with red cloth and cowries. The man had told her it would keep her secret safe. She held it tightly, whispering prayers mixed with fear. God, please don't let anyone find out. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, she said, trembling. But as thunder rolled in the sky again, she heard the faint cry of a baby, this time louder, clearer, and closer. She looked around her room, but there was no baby. Still, the cry continued, calling her name. The next morning, Obina returned to the clinic early. The door was half open, but Ebo was not there. Inside, the place looked scattered, papers on the floor, a baby blanket in the corner, and a small drop of blood near the bed. Obina froze. "What happened here?" he whispered. Fear filled his heart. The secret he was chasing had just taken a darker turn, and he knew this was only the beginning. By sunrise, the news had already spread across Umago like wildfire. Nurse Ebo had vanished, the clinic door stood half open, the inside scattered like a place robbed by spirits. The village women gathered, whispering in fear. "Maybe she traveled," one said. Another shook her head. "Travel without telling anybody." Soon, everyone began to talk. Some said she ran away with stolen money, others whispered that evil spirits took her because of something bad she did. No one knew the truth, but one person was sure: Obina. He stood quietly, staring at the clinic, his heart beating fast. "She didn't just run," he muttered. "Something happened here." Mama Chica arrived carrying her weak baby. Her eyes were red from crying. "Obina, where is Ebo?" "My baby is dying," she sobbed. Obina's jaw tightened. "Sister, forget that woman. Something no clean about her." Mama Chica shook her head. "If Ebo no treat my baby, who go help me?" she cried. Just then, Inspector Kolu and 2 policemen arrived. They pushed through the crowd and entered the clinic. Moments later, they came out holding a small nylon bag, the same red charm Ebo had kept under her pillow. The whole crowd gasped. "Jesus!" someone shouted. "She dey do juju," an old woman screamed, spitting on the ground. The fear turned to chaos. Mothers began to clutch their babies tighter. That evening, thunder rumbled again, as if the heavens were angry. Obina sat by his window, thinking about the blood he saw on the clinic floor. Did someone hurt her, he thought? Or did her secret finally catch up with her? His mind refused to rest. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Ebo's trembling face, the way she looked at that rich woman, the way she counted the money with shaky hands. "No," he whispered, standing up suddenly. "This no be ordinary disappearance. I must find her." Meanwhile, in a small forest at the edge of the village, a woman's voice cried softly in the dark. Her clothes were torn, her face dirty, and her eyes swollen. It was Ebo. She sat near a tree, holding her knees to her chest. "God, help me," she whispered. "They will find me. They will know everything." Her mind replayed the moment she tried to run, the sound of a voice calling her name, the flash of light, and then silence. She didn't know if she was running from humans or spirits. All she knew was that she couldn't go back. Back in the village, Mama Chica's baby suddenly stopped breathing. She screamed so loud that people rushed from every corner. "My baby! My baby!" she cried. Obina carried the baby and ran toward the clinic, but it was too late. The child's body was cold, lifeless. Silence fell across the crowd. All eyes turned toward the empty clinic. Whispers filled the air again. "Ebo's curse," they said. The same woman who helped life come into the world had brought death to the village. And somewhere in the dark, the midwife herself wept, knowing the spirit of the real child was coming for her. The night after Mama Chica's baby died, Umwago village went silent. Even the crickets seemed afraid to sing. The moon hid behind dark clouds, and the wind carried whispers that sounded like crying. The elders gathered under the big tree near the square, shaking their heads. "This kind thing never happened before," said the oldest man, Ponwosu. "A midwife ran away, a baby died the same night, this no be ordinary." Some said it was witchcraft, others said it was God's punishment. But Obina, sitting quietly in the corner, felt something deeper. He couldn't stop hearing his sister's cries. He couldn't stop thinking about the day that rich woman came to the clinic. He stood up suddenly. "I go find that woman," he said. She knows something. Meanwhile, far inside the forest, Ebo sat shivering beside a small fire she had made with dry sticks. Her hair was rough, her eyes swollen from crying. She hadn't eaten for days. God, what have I done? She whispered. Every rustle of leaves made her jump. She heard a sound, a baby's cry, soft but clear. Her body froze. No, it's not real, she muttered, pressing her ears. But the cry came again, this time closer, louder, like the baby was right behind her. Slowly, she turned. There was no one there, only darkness and trees waving in the wind. She screamed and fell to her knees. Forgive me, she cried. Please, forgive me. But the crying didn't stop. It grew louder, echoing through the night, like the spirit of the real child was calling her name. Back in the village, Obina's search led him to the next town, Nkwalba. He asked around about Madame Ifenanya, and soon he found her big compound. When he knocked, a guard stopped him. Who are you? Obina said calmly, I'm here about her baby. The guard's eyes changed. Madam no day, he said quickly, turning to leave. But Obina noticed a small baby's shoe on the ground, the same design he saw on his sister's baby. His heart pounded. So it's true, he whispered. Ebo really changed the babies. He knew he couldn't face her alone anymore. He needed proof, and he needed help. That night, as Obina walked back home, he saw smoke rising from the forest side. The villagers whispered that strange lights had been appearing there since Ebo disappeared. Spirits, they dance inside that bush, one man said. Obina's chest tightened. He knew who it was, Ebo. But what was she doing there? The next day, he took a lantern and a cutlass and entered the forest path alone. Each step he took was heavy. The trees seemed to whisper his name. Suddenly, he heard it, the cry of a baby. Cold ran through his body. Who's there? He shouted. No answer. He walked faster, the sound growing louder until he saw something that made his heart stop. Ebo, sitting on the ground, crying like a child. Ebo, he called out, but she didn't move. Her eyes were wide, her lips trembling. Obina, she whispered weakly, they're coming for me, the babies, they know what I did. Before he could speak, the sound of crying filled the forest again, hundreds of cries, coming from nowhere and everywhere. Obina grabbed her hand. We must go, he shouted. But Ebo pulled away. No. I can't run anymore, she cried. Lightning flashed, and for a second, Obina saw small shadows moving between the trees, like tiny figures crawling on the ground. His blood ran cold. He dragged Ebo up, but she fainted in his arms. As rain began to fall, Obina realized one thing, this was no longer just about secrets. Something from the spirit world had awakened, and it wanted justice. The rain beat hard on Obina's back as he carried Ebo through the muddy forest path. She was weak, shaking, whispering strange words in her sleep. Her clothes were torn, her face pale like someone who had seen death. By the time he reached the edge of the village, the morning sun was rising. People gathered quickly, shocked to see him. No Ebo be that, one woman shouted. Oh! The midwife done turn ghost. Children screamed and ran, and old women crossed themselves in fear. Obina shouted over the noise, she no be ghost. She still dey breathe. Somebody bring water. He laid her on the ground, his heart racing as she coughed and opened her eyes slowly. Mama Chica pushed through the crowd. Her eyes were red from crying, but when she saw Ebo, her anger returned. Ebo! You get mine to come back after what you do, she screamed. Ebo tried to speak, but her lips trembled. Mama Chica. I'm sorry. Before she could finish, Mama Chica slapped her hard across the face. Sorry cannot bring back my baby, she shouted, her voice breaking. The crowd gasped, some shouting for mercy, others calling her a witch. But before anyone could say more, Obina raised his hand. All of una wait. There's something you all need to hear, he said firmly. Ebu no just vanish for nothing. There's something bigger behind this. Everyone went silent. Even the birds stopped singing. Obina continued, his voice steady but angry. I went to Nkwoba. I saw Madam Ifenanya's house. The same woman that Ebu helped give birth. Her baby, the shoe I saw, it's the same one Chika's baby wore before he died. You know what that means? Mamas filled the air. It means the babies were exchanged, someone shouted. The crowd gasped. Mama Chika covered her mouth, trembling. My baby, my real baby, alive. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Ebu began to cry loudly, it's true. I did it. I swapped the babies. I needed the money to treat my sick mother. The people shouted in shock. Some called her evil, others pitied her. The devil used me, she cried. I thought I could fix it before anyone noticed, but the real baby, he died in my hands. The air grew heavy. The villagers looked at one another, confused, angry, heartbroken. Mama Chika fell to her knees, hitting her chest. My child. My blood. Oh God, why? Ebu reached out to her, crying, forgive me. Please. But Mama Chika pushed her away. Don't touch me. You killed my baby and sold my joy. The men had to hold her back as she tried to attack Ebu. Obina stood between them, shouting, enough. Fighting won't bring the baby back. We need to face the truth and take Ebu to the elders. The crowd agreed. 2 strong men carried Ebu to the village square where the elders were already waiting. As they arrived, thunder roared in the sky again. It felt like heaven itself was listening. Ebu knelt in front of the elders, shaking. The oldest elder, Ponwosu, looked at her for a long time before speaking. Ebu, you were trusted with life, but you traded it for money. Do you know the kind of curse that brings? Ebu sobbed, nodding. I didn't mean to, please forgive me, but before Ponwosu could speak again, a strange sound filled the air, a baby's cry, soft but close. Everyone froze. Where is it coming from? Someone whispered. The cry echoed again, from behind the elder's hut. Slowly, Obina walked toward the sound, his heart beating fast. He moved a pile of old mats, and there, wrapped in a dirty cloth, was a baby, alive. The crowd screamed. Mama Chika ran forward and fell to her knees, shaking as she stared. This can't be, she cried. The baby looked weak but alive, eyes half open. Obina lifted the child gently, speechless. How? He whispered. Ebu gasped, tears running down her face. That's the baby Madam Ifenanya didn't want. She said he was too dark, she told me to throw him away. The villagers wailed in disbelief. The truth was more twisted than anyone could imagine, and it was only the beginning. Because the moment Ebu confessed everything, a shadow moved from the edge of the forest, someone was watching, someone who knew that the worst was yet to come. By the next morning, the news had spread like wildfire, the midwife was back, the dead baby was alive, and the rich woman's secret was out. Villagers gathered at the square again, whispering and pointing fingers. Some said Ebu should be locked up, others said Madam Ifenanya must return and explain herself. Obina and 2 other men rode to the city to bring her back. The road was long, the sun was harsh, but Obina's anger burned hotter. This woman think money fit hide sin, he muttered. She go explain today. When they reached her compound, the guards tried to stop them, but Obina pushed past them. Tell Madam say the village sent me, he shouted. Moments later, Madam Ifenanya appeared, wearing sunglasses, gold earrings shining in the sun, and anger burning on her face. What is the meaning of this nonsense? She asked coldly. Obina stood tall. We know the truth, madam. The midwife don't confess. You bought Mama Chica's baby. Madame Ifunania's face changed for a second, but she quickly laughed. Are you mad? Me? Buy baby? Who told you such rubbish? She sneered. But when Obina showed her the shoe, the same one her baby wore, her smile disappeared. Where did you get this? She asked quietly. From your house, Obina replied. And that same shoe used to belong to the baby you rejected. Madame Ifunania's hands began to shake. Leave my house, she screamed. You don't know what you're talking about. But before she could turn away, a baby's cry came from inside. The same cry Obina had heard in the forest. He pushed the door open, and there, sitting on the sofa, was a nanny holding the fair-skinned baby, the one everyone believed was Mama Chica's. Madame Ifunania froze. The nanny quickly stood up, confused. Madam, she asked. Tears filled Madame Ifunania's eyes. Leave us, she whispered. When they were alone, she turned to Obina. Her voice broke. I didn't plan this. I just wanted a child that would look like my husband. He said he didn't want a dark baby. When Ebo offered me one for money, I was weak. She covered her face and began to cry. I thought no one would ever know. Obina's face hardened. You let another woman suffer for your lie. Her child died while you were taking pictures with hers. Madame Ifunania fell to her knees. Please, don't take him away. He's all I have now. But Obina shook his head. He's not yours, madam. He never was. That afternoon, Obina returned with Madame Ifunania and the baby. The entire village gathered again, waiting, whispering. When Mama Chica saw the car approaching, her heart nearly stopped. She ran forward before anyone could hold her back. The moment her eyes met the baby's, she broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. My child, she cried. I knew I could feel you still breathing somewhere. The crowd clapped, some cried, others shouted praises. But Ponwosu raised his hand. Let everyone be quiet, he said firmly. Before we celebrate, we must hear the full truth. Ebo knelt again, shaking, as Madame Ifunania stood beside her, ashamed. Tell us everything, the old man said. And so they did, every lie, every deal, every tear. The more they spoke, the heavier the air became. When they finished, Ponwosu sighed deeply. What both of you did cannot be washed away with tears, he said. But the gods have shown mercy by returning the child alive. We will not shed more blood, but both of you must face your punishment. He turned to Madame Ifunania. You will pay for what you did, not with money, but by returning what is not yours and supporting the family you almost destroyed. Then he faced Ebo. And you will work under the village clinic without pay for 2 years. Maybe then, your hands will heal from this sin. Both women cried and nodded. But just as the people began to come, thunder cracked loudly again. Everyone looked up, the sky had turned dark, and the wind was cold. The baby in Mama Chica's arms began to cry uncontrollably. The old women started murmuring, The spirits are not done yet. Mama Chica tried to comfort the baby, but the crying grew louder, sharper, almost painful. Suddenly, the baby's eyes turned upward, and his tiny hand pointed toward the forest. Everyone froze. Ebo fell on the ground screaming, they are calling him. The spirits. They are not at rest yet. Panic spread. Men grabbed their cutlasses, women held their children close. Ponwosu shouted, nobody moves. Something else is hiding behind this story. The wind howled louder, sweeping dust into the air, as a strange figure began to walk slowly out of the forest, dressed in white, barefoot, carrying something in her hands. The villagers gasped in fear. Obina stepped forward, heart pounding. Who are you? He shouted. The figure raised her head slowly, and what they saw made every soul in Umogo scream. The wind blew wild. Dust filled the air. Everyone ran backward as the strange woman in white stepped out of the forest path. Her face was pale, her eyes glowing like a full moon. The cloth on her body was torn but clean, and she walked slowly, holding something close to her chest. Children screamed and hid behind their mothers. Some of the old women began to chant prayers. "Jesus! Who be this?" one man shouted. "No ghost." The figure stopped and looked around the crowd. Then she spoke, her voice soft but echoing like thunder, "I am not here to harm anyone." The sound sent chills down every spine. Obine took one step forward, trembling but brave. "Who are you?" he asked again. The woman smiled sadly and raised what she was holding, a small, old baby blanket, dirty and torn. "I came for my son," she said. The whole village gasped. Mama Chica screamed, "What do you mean? My baby is mine." But the woman looked straight at her, tears rolling down her face. "No, it was mine first," she said quietly. "I died the night Ebo exchanged the babies." She didn't only trade a child, she traded a soul. Ebo collapsed on the ground, shouting, "No. No. I didn't mean to." She held her head and began to cry loudly. "Please forgive me. Please." The woman turned slowly toward her. "You remember me, Ebo?" she asked. "You were there when I gave birth in pain. You promised me my baby would live, but you took him away before my last breath." Ebo screamed, "Stop. I was desperate. My mother was dying." But the woman stepped closer, her feet not touching the ground. "And so was I. You sold my child to the woman in the city, and the gods would not let me rest." The baby in Mama Chica's arms began to cry again, the same strange, haunting cry as before. The villagers fell to their knees, trembling. The woman in white looked at the baby with love. "He carries two souls," she said. "One from the living, and one from the dead." Her voice grew softer. "That is why he cries. He remembers both mothers." Tears filled Mama Chica's eyes. "Please, what do you want from us?" she begged. The woman sighed. "I want peace. I want this village to cleanse itself from lies, from greed, from the pain that killed me." She looked at Ebo and Madame Ifenanya. "The gods have seen your tears, but tears cannot erase truth. You must confess everything before dawn, or the land will not rest." Her words echoed as thunder roared again. Ponwosu, who had been silent, stepped forward holding his staff. "Spirits don't speak without reason," he said. "The gods are angry, but they are giving us one last chance." He turned to the villagers. "Before sunrise, everyone involved must come to the square. No secret should remain hidden." Madame Ifeanyi fell on her knees. "I will confess," she cried. "I lied to my husband, to God, to everyone. I am sorry." Ebo too knelt, sobbing uncontrollably. "I confess everything. I took what wasn't mine." The woman in white watched them, her face calm but sad. "Now you speak the truth," she whispered. "Let the land breathe again." She slowly turned to leave, walking toward the forest as the wind followed her like a shadow. The baby stopped crying instantly. The sky cleared. It was as if the world had taken a deep breath of peace. But just as everyone thought it was over, the baby began to giggle softly, a sound so sweet it melted hearts. Mama Chica smiled through tears. "He's come now, thank you, Lord." But Obina noticed something strange. The white cloth the woman had worn lay on the ground where she stood, but there were no footprints, no trace of her passing. "She came and left like air," he whispered. Ponwosu picked up the cloth gently. "The spirit has gone home," he said. But as he looked closer, his eyes widened. Sewn inside the edge of the cloth was a name, Ebo's mother. The crowd gasped. Ebo screamed and fainted on the spot. Everyone shouted her name. It was then they realized, The woman in white was not just any spirit. She was the mother Ebo claimed she stole to save. The same woman whose death had started everything. The village did not sleep that night. Every compound was quiet, every lantern burned low. Fear walked from house to house like a shadow. The elders had ordered everyone to gather at the village square before midnight. No soul must stay behind, Ponwosu warned. This curse no be ordinary, it started with deceit, and it must end with truth. The women tied white wrappers, the men carried palm fronds, and children clung to their mothers' legs. The air smelled of rain and palm oil. The night birds cried from the forest. Even the wind sounded angry. In the middle of the square, a fire burned brightly. Beside it stood Ebo, her head shaved, her eyes swollen. She was trembling but silent. Mama Chika held her baby tight, whispering prayers, while Madame Ifinanya stood far behind, her makeup washed off by tears. The whole village waited. Ponwosu raised his staff and began to speak. Tonight, Umago will wash its hands from the blood of the innocent, he said. The gods have shown mercy by bringing truth into the open, but they are not yet satisfied. He pointed at Ebo. You must speak from your heart. Tell everything, from beginning to end. No more lies. The crowd was silent. Ebo swallowed hard and began to talk. It started the day my mother fell sick, she said, her voice shaking. The herbs no longer worked, and the doctor said she needed money. I begged everyone, nobody helped. So when Madame Ifinanya came, desperate for a fair child, I agreed. I took Mama Chika's baby and gave her another. But that night, my real mother died. Since then, I've not known peace. She covered her face, crying. Now I know, the spirit I saw in white was my own mother, she never forgave me. The villagers murmured. Some wiped tears, others shook their heads in pity. Ponwosu nodded slowly. The gods always reveal their truth through pain, he said. But for this land to be clean again, we must return what was taken. He turned to Madame Ifinanya. You must go to the forest shrine and beg for forgiveness. You too, Ebo. Madame Ifinanya fell to her knees. I will go, she cried. The old women began to sing softly, ancient songs of cleansing. The drums beat low, the sound carrying into the night. Ebo and Madame Ifinanya walked side by side toward the forest, holding palm fronds and white chalk. The villagers followed at a distance, carrying lanterns. The baby began to cry again, louder this time, as if he could feel what was coming. Mama Chika tried to hush him, but the cry grew stronger. The spirits are awake again, Ponwosu whispered. At the shrine, the fire burned brighter than before. Ebo and Madame Ifinanya knelt before the old wooden statue of the goddess of birth. Say the truth for the last time, Ponwosu commanded. Let the land hear you. Both women cried and confessed again, calling on their ancestors to forgive them. Then Ponwosu dipped a broom in palm oil and sprinkled it over their heads. From this night, let the curse be lifted, he shouted. Suddenly, thunder cracked across the sky. The wind roared. The fire flickered wildly, and the ground shook slightly beneath their feet. Ebo screamed. She's here again, she shouted, pointing toward the forest. Everyone turned, a bright light appeared between the trees. The same woman in white stood there, smiling softly this time. It is done, her voice echoed. The truth has found its way home. The villagers fell to their knees, crying and praying. Mama Chika held her baby tight, feeling warmth flow through him. The baby smiled for the first time since he was found. The woman in white looked at Ebo one last time. My daughter, she said gently, you have repaid your debt. Let peace follow you now. Ebo sobbed uncontrollably. Mama, forgive me. The spirit nodded, then slowly faded into the air. The wind calmed. The fire burned steadily. Everyone felt it, the heaviness was gone. Ponwosu lifted his staff. Umuago is free, he shouted. The crowd screamed with joy, hugging one another, dancing in tears. But as they turned to leave the shrine, Obinna stopped suddenly. His eyes were fixed on the statue of the goddess. A single drop of blood had appeared on its forehead. Ponwosu, he said quietly, why is the statue bleeding? The old man turned and frowned. It means, he said slowly, that the land is free, but the sin is not finished. Silence fell again. The villagers looked at one another, confused. The fire flickered as if whispering secrets. Ebo looked up weakly. What does it mean, Pa? She asked in fear. The old man sighed. It means there's still one truth we haven't seen. Something still hides in the dark. Everyone grew silent, the joy turning back into fear. The wind blew again, carrying the faint sound of a baby's cry, but this time, it didn't come from Momachika's arms. It came from deep inside the shrine. The baby's cry echoed again, soft at first, then louder, sharper, coming from deep inside the shrine. The villagers froze. Some started backing away. Momachika held her child tightly to her chest. That one no be my baby voice, she whispered, shaking. Ponwosu lifted his staff high. Nobody move, he said. Let the gods speak their last word. The fire at the shrine burned brighter, turning blue. The ground trembled as if something beneath it wanted to come out. Then, slowly, from behind the goddess statue, a clay pot rolled forward and broke into pieces, and inside it was a tiny cloth bundle. Obinna stepped closer, his heart pounding. He bent down, picked it up, and gasped. Inside the cloth were bones, small bones, and a bracelet made from white cowries. The women screamed. Jesus, shouted one of them. Ponwosu closed his eyes. This, he said quietly, is the real first child that died. Ebo fell on her knees, screaming. No. It can't be. She crawled closer, her hands shaking. I buried him by the river, not here. But Ponwosu's face grew dark. No, Ebo. The gods buried him themselves. You didn't just steal babies, you stole destiny. The river rejected the child's body, and the land took it back. The crowd began to cry. Momachika wept so hard she could barely stand. So my child's twin, this is him, she asked weakly. Ponwosu nodded. Yes. His spirit has been crying all this while, calling his brother home. The baby in her arms started crying again, the same sharp cry, but this time the sound mixed with thunder as lightning flashed across the sky. Suddenly, the statue of the goddess cracked open, and smoke poured out. The woman in white appeared again, holding light in her hands. Now the truth is complete, she said softly. 2 lives were meant to be one. But greed separated them. She turned to Ebo, who was crying uncontrollably. Your sin brought death, but your repentance brings peace. The lost child can now rest. She touched the small bones gently, and they glowed before turning to dust that vanished into the wind. Everyone knelt, crying and praying. The baby in Momachika's arms smiled again, peaceful. He's free now, said the spirit. Raise him in truth, and this land will know no more sorrow. She looked at Obinna and added, you will guard the clinic, make sure no midwife ever sells a soul again. Obinna nodded with tears in his eyes. The wind grew calm. The fire died on its own. The spirit began to fade away, but before she vanished completely, she turned to Ebo one last time. My daughter, she said gently, live and do good. Let your hands heal what they once harmed. Then she disappeared into the light, leaving only silence behind. Ebo collapsed to the ground, crying in relief and guilt. Momachika walked up to her slowly, knelt down, and took her hand. I forgive you, she said quietly. You gave me back what I lost. Let us all start again. The crowd began to clap softly, tears flowing down their faces. The drums started beating, not in sorrow this time, but in celebration. The night that once smelled of fear now smelled of rain and hope. As dawn broke, the first rays of sun touched the shrine. The statue of the goddess, though cracked, now shone faintly like gold. Birds began to sing again. Ebo stood weakly, looking up at the sky. "Mama," she whispered, "thank you." Obinna placed his hand on her shoulder. "Your punishment is to serve, but your chance to live again has come." Ponwosu raised his staff one last time. "From today, Umogo is clean," he shouted. The villagers echoed his words with joy. Mama Chika lifted her baby high, tears running down her cheeks. The baby laughed, a pure, peaceful sound that filled the air. The curse was gone. The dead had rested. The living had learned. And as the sun rose fully over Umwego, everyone knew one thing for sure: the midwife's secret would never be forgotten, because it taught the village that no lie stays buried forever.